tried to shut them up.
There's no guarantee to free speech.
They tried to cancel them.
Deplatforming works.
They even threw them in jail.
Peter Navarro,
Steve Bannon,
now in prison.
But they couldn't stop them.
It's not a prison bill that will ever shut me up.
America's Voice Live.
And welcome to America's Voice Live. I'm Steve Gruber.
The pulse of the people.
We need somebody that's going to hear the people's voice.
The truth the mainstream won't touch.
This guy is by definition a globalist.
And the stories that matter.
Rav's own Ben Berquam.
Right up over this hill, we got Armed Cartel. I see him.
Live.
Breaking news right now here on Real America's Voice.
Unfiltered.
These people are domestic terrorists.
And unapologetic.
We're here to take a stand for God and country. Does feel good, doesn't it?
America's Voice Live starts now.
Welcome to America's Voice Live. I'm Steve Gruber. It is Monday, the 21st of April. Hope you enjoyed your Easter Sunday. We certainly did around here. Let's get to the day's top stories. As always, thank you for spending time here with us on Real America's Voice. Now, earlier today, Pope Francis passed away at the age of 88. You probably knew that. This comes right after a meeting with J.D. Vance and others of the Catholic faith for Easter Sunday. I'll discuss that today in detail. Also, China's feeling the heat, issuing warnings as President Trump uses tough tariff talks to pressure U.S. allies to cut back on deals with Beijing. It's quite clear that America first is back. More on that as well. And then later, President Trump signals a big win for rare earth deals with Ukraine. He said it could be finalized this week. It's a strong step towards securing American supply chains and breaking dependence on China. But can we get the deal done finally? That's the real question. We'll get to that, but we start here. The White House hosting the annual egg roll today on the South Lawn after an Easter weekend spent focused on the Christian faith. Listen to these White House staffers. If you missed this, this is pretty remarkable, singing Amazing Grace. How sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. What a refreshing change from the last administration's focus, huh? Which was, of course, to declare a Transgender Visibility Day on Easter Sunday, a slap in the face to all Christians. The Democrat Party, it's made a complete fool of itself over the last several years, siding with absurd factions at the expense of most ordinary Americans. One example being the billions spent on the war in Ukraine. All for what? For what? The war's still dragging on, but the Trump administration says, look, it's ready to cut ties if peace is off the table. If you can't get this done, we've got other more important things to do. Here is Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
The Ukraine war is a terrible thing, but it's not our war. We didn't start it. The United States has been helping Ukraine over the last 3 years, and we want it to end. But it's not our war. I want everyone to understand that. And the reason why I make that point is the president has spent 87 days at the highest level of his government repeatedly taking efforts to bring this war to an end. We are now reaching a point where we need to decide and determine whether this is even possible or not, which is why we're engaging both sides. So we need to determine very quickly now, and I'm talking about in a matter of days, whether or not this is doable over the next few weeks. If it is, we're in. If it's not, then we have other priorities to focus on as well.
Now, Vladimir Putin did declare a ceasefire over the Easter weekend, one that Volodymyr Zelensky called, quote, another attempt by Putin to play with human lives. Not the most reassuring signal of peace, obviously, again. We're going to keep our eyes on that as it develops. But back to the Democrats, focusing on the wrong priorities. They've dug themselves into a hole by defending illegal alien Kilmar Abrejo Garcia, who was deported by the Trump administration. Here's President Trump listing what we know about the man. Maryland Senator Van Hollen traveled all the way to El Salvador to do a wellness check on and has now got 4 Democrat members of Congress there as well. This is lengthy, but it's worth the listen.
Is an illegal alien MS-13 gang member and foreign terrorist. This comes out of the State Department and very legitimate sources. I mean, I assume I'm just giving you what they handed to me, but this was supposed to be certified stuff. In 2019, Garcia was issued a deportation order. 2 separate judges affirmed Garcia was a member of MS-13, which is a gang that may be even worse than Tren de Aragua, and maybe worse. They They kill people with knives because it's more painful. Very famous for the knifing and killing of two young 16-year-old girls walking to school one day, and they sliced them up into little pieces and killed them. That's MS-13. And two separate judges affirmed Garcia was a member of MS-13. When Garcia was originally arrested, he was wearing a sweatshirt with rolls of money pouring out, an MS-13 gang symbol that he was driving with two other known violent MS-13 gang members, two of the most violent members that we know of in the MS-13 gang of thugs. In 2022, Garcia was stopped by the Tennessee Highway Patrol and was found to be transporting 7 people from Texas to Maryland, and he had no driver's license. He was driving violently. In 2020 and 2021, Garcia's wife filed for a protective order from him and said he was violent and abusive and really scary, including allegations that he punched and scratched her on the eye, left her bleeding after throwing her laptop on the floor at her, ripped her shirt, and ripped off her shorts. He then grabbed her arm, leaving very severe marks. Garcia's wife also wrote in court, "At this point, I am afraid to be close to him. I just don't want to be close. I have multiple photos and videos how violent he can be and all of the bruises that he's left on me." She just couldn't get anywhere near him. This is the man that the Democrats are wanting us to fly back from El Salvador to be a happily ensconced member of the USA family.
Yeah. Now, how does the American left keep finding itself propping up the worst possible people as martyrs? How do you keep ending up in this place, the wrong side of history? So much for women's rights, by the way. The Democrat Party will go to bat for a wife-beating illegal alien gangbanger while also fighting for a biological man's right to use the same locker room and bathroom as your daughter or granddaughter or wife. Abrejo Garcia's wife has been crowdfunding support for her husband on GoFundMe, but notice that she censored the tattoos on his hands. Now, why is that? There's evidence to believe that the symbols tattooed on his hands stand for MS-13. It's not looking good for them, of course. She's also been facing an uphill battle trying to ignore the fact that she's filed a restraining order against her husband in the past. Listen to this.
You did take out a temporary order of protection against your husband in 2021. Were you in fear of your husband?
My husband is alive. That's all I can say.
Okay, then I'm not going to push on that, apparently.
Why not? Michael Strahan fancies himself a journalist, but apparently doesn't consider pushing for the truth as part of his job. It is, by the way. At least he asked the question, but it appears someone put a stop to that in his ear. You know, they'll do that sometimes. Oh, well, that's what people like Stephen Miller are for, to set the record straight over and over again. Since the media won't do it, Stephen Miller will. Listen.
Jimmy, stories I can tell you of children that were trafficked across the border and raped because of the policies of Joe Biden. There aren't enough volumes that could fit into a library to calculate the carnage that has been inflicted by the Democrat Party's policy of open borders. We can spend the rest of our lives trying to document those harms. Where does our whole country go to get repaid for all of the wealth, all of the prosperity and security that has been stolen from us by decades of uncontrolled illegal mass migration? Because we all deserve reparations for what has been stolen from us. It is a tragedy that defies our ability to even describe it.
Yeah, but instead of trying to make it up to the American people, Democrats continue down that same path, down that rat hole. People like Senator Chris Van Hollen in his trip to El Salvador, or Representatives Garcia and Frost. Their request to Oversight Committee for funds to do the same. They did it anyway, but Oversight Committee Chair James Comer said, no, we're not paying for that. We're not paying for that. Why would we? They don't want oversight of the Biden border crisis and the consequence of millions of illegals coming into the country. No, they want to seek to travel at the committee's expense to meet with foreign gang members. Request denied. Rightfully so. There are Americans still being held hostage by Hamas right now, but Democrats are rallying around the release of a gang member instead of those folks, if they're still alive. Maybe they should look into it. Pretty despicable, really. Meanwhile, in California, Governor Newsom is running his state into the ground, of course, bleeding billions to cover state health care for undocumented migrants, the newcomers, you know, at the expense of everybody else. Newsom's latest budget proposal puts the cost of covering illegals at $8.5 billion in a state with the highest homeless population in the country. The highest homeless population in the country can be found in California. Unbelievable. Pundits and lawmakers on MSNBC are jumping to the ridiculous conclusion that if illegal aliens are deported, then people of color will soon follow. Black folks are going to get tossed out. Hispanic folks are going to get tossed out of the country. I mean, if you haven't heard crazy yet today, here's your chance.
If they could do it to them, if they could snatch students off the street without any pushback or recourse, they will do it to any of us. And to be very clear, it's going to be the people of color and vulnerable communities that are next in line.
I think that's right, and that's certainly part of why the African American community is so strongly behind the supporting Killmonger.
Yeah, we're like, we are not for this.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think identifying yourself with a gang-banging wife beater is a winning strategy. I don't. Maybe they think it is. I don't. While the left-wing party focuses on the rights of people who came into the country illegally, the president of El Salvador, Bukele, makes a better point, a much better point. Here he is.
What about the human right for women not to be raped? I mean, what about the human right of kids to play or to be free or to go to the park? And what about the human right to live, or the human right to walk in the street, right? But no, they were worried about the human rights of the killers.
Human rights of a woman to not be raped, or a kid to walk down the street and not be attacked with violence. What about those human rights? Thank you, President Bukele, for that. Now, this is a man who turned a dangerous, lawless nation, one of the most dangerous places on earth, into one of the safest tourist destinations that you can go to. He faced the same opposition that Trump's facing now, the Liberal Party's obsession with making martyrs out of criminals, victims out of those violent criminals. The Supreme Court has temporarily blocked the Trump administration from deporting Venezuelans under the Alien Enemies Act. The administration has signaled it intends to fight back. Meanwhile, the U.S. currently experiencing the lowest number of southwest border crossings ever. And the Trump administration isn't just stopping there. Here's Stephen Miller on sanctuary cities for one more little special twist. Listen.
The sanctuary cities are engaged in multiple criminal violations: harboring, smuggling, inducing, obstructing justice, obstructing official proceedings, and many other crimes. And this is something that the Department of Justice is taking a very hard look at. I will just say that it is my view, the view of this administration, that these cities are engaged in systemic criminal violations and that they are engaged in a scheme to nullify and obstruct the duly enacted laws of the United States of America. And I would again note, when we talk about morality, talk about decency, sanctuary cities shield criminal illegal aliens from removal. We repeatedly go into communities and arrest illegal aliens who were previously in custody, that they refused to turn over, that were sent back onto the street, that have subsequently raped or abused a child.
Yeah. Cracking down on these sanctuary cities is going to an important piece of the puzzle to make America safe again. And if anyone can do it, it's going to be this administration. Will Democrats abandon this losing strategy of defending the worst of the worst? Doesn't look like it. I'd say it's unlikely, but Americans are waking up to who actually defends their interests, and hopefully that will affect the results of the midterm elections next year. Of course, the economy will play a role. A little bumpy right now, to say the least. A lot to talk about, but protecting Americans from crime, pretty good place to start. Now, coming up after the break, Pope Francis passed away early this morning. As Catholics all over the world mourn his death, the Cardinals prepare to select the next Pope. Who's it going to be? We'll discuss this coming up. Catholics around the world are mourning the loss of Pope Francis. Passed away early this morning at the age of 88, 7:25 local time. That would have been 1:25 Eastern time here today. Now, this comes shortly after the Vatican celebrated the Easter holiday with the Pope, meeting a number of people, including J.D. Vance. Pope Francis frequently preached on the Catholic virtues of mercy and kindness, humility. He didn't seem to shy away from controversy either with American presidents. Less than a month into Donald Trump's presidency, Pope Francis criticized the Trump administration's plan to mass deport illegal aliens and gang members, stating that it deprives these individuals of their dignity. With the Pope's sudden passing, Catholics now look to the cardinals to select the next Pope. Here with me to discuss all of this is both former Congressman Lieutenant Colonel Alan West and the National Director of Priests for Life, Father Frank Pavone. Gentlemen, thank you for being here today. Father, I'll start with you. I think it's fair to say that this was a controversial Pope who was very left of center. He was the first Pope from the Americas. But that notwithstanding, he was a historical Pope. Some would say for good things and some would probably disagree. Your thoughts today?
Well, I had some very good interactions with him. I got a chance to meet with him in the course of my pro-life work about 5 times. And, you know, he likes very much he encouraged our works of mercy. You know, we run the largest ministry for healing people after abortion, and he encouraged me strongly in that. However, we also saw a lot of confusion among the faithful and a lot of hurt. You know, the scriptures show Jesus establishing Peter as someone who's supposed to strengthen his brethren in the faith. And unfortunately, at times, for motives that we don't need to try to judge, the Pope's remarks caused more confusion than clarity on things like gay rights and on things like even Jesus being the only way to salvation. Now, these are established church teachings. No Pope has the authority to change them or call them into question. So in that sense, you know, we commend him to the Lord. We have no ill will against him or anyone else, but we do pray for some healing in the church now and for clarity in the next Pope.
And Colonel, let me get you to weigh in on this. We now hold a papal conclave. Up to 120 bishops from around the world can gather. They have to be less than 80 years of age. The more senior cardinals cannot participate. And then, of course, we watch for the change of color of smoke. But I think it's safe to say a lot of Catholics, certainly the ones that I've talked to and the ones that I see post online, they would like to see this church go back to the center and back to being more conservative center right. What do you say to that?
It's good to be with you, Steve, and it's great to be on air with Father Frank. I would have to agree. My wife is Catholic, and, you know, I grew up in private Catholic schools. And so when you talk about those teachings, when you talk about those fundamentals, when you talk about the gospel, we would love to see that Catholic Church reemerge. And I think that also is very important to think about, you know, John Paul II and that relationship that he had with Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher and how they took on the quote unquote evil empire and brought freedom and liberty to those people that were behind the Iron Curtain. So I believe that right now is a great opportunity to look at how you can repair possibly the image, the brand, maybe even the reputation of the Catholic Church with some of those controversial sayings and statements that were made under this past Pope, which we ask that God, you know, rest his soul in peace. But you've got to think about this institution and where does it go forward?
Yeah, this Pope also, Father Frank, I'll have you weigh in on this. This Pope not being buried at the Vatican, breaking with tradition. He actually restructured the rules, I think, in 2023. He's going to be buried outside of the Vatican, isn't he?
Yes, and you know, a lot of these things, of course, are non-essential things that can change. And you know, he has in many ways brought attention to the fact that we need to be closer to the people. We need to identify with the poor and the marginalized. All of that we applaud. And some of these changes, you know, obviously each pope can do it his own way, just as there are many things that when we elect a president, he can choose to do his own way. So I think we want to, at this time, you know, take what is good and take what is a good example that he left and build on that and echo it for the future. And then at the same time, heal the wounds that need to be healed.
Yeah. It seems that nobody was immune to politics anymore, Colonel. And I say that because the Pope not only criticized Donald Trump for his stance on deporting illegals, he also took issue with Joe Biden and Democrats' position on abortion. I mean, he was willing to lay criticism when he didn't like something. That's for sure.
Well, it's pretty interesting because if you know your Bible, even God understood, borders and boundaries. And so when he expelled Adam and Eve from the Garden of Eden, he set forth an angel with a sword of fire to prevent them from coming back in. So I think it's important that we understand and we respect the rule of law. And as Christ said, render unto Caesar what is Caesar, and render unto God what is God. And also in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verses, I believe about 8 to 13, Paul talks about how these members and leaders in the church need to preach the word in season and out. So I think it's really important that you not get caught up in the social, climate, but you continue as a leader in the church to speak toward God's word and the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Right. Well, there you have it. Father, I'll give you the last word here today. I mean, I've seen a lot of the popes in my lifetime have served 15 years. Paul VI. John Paul I only served 33 days, but of course John Paul II was their very transformational figure. Popes certainly can be. I don't know where this pope will end up in the history books. Time will only tell. But what's the time frame here? Just give me the logistics of how long it might take to see that smoke change color.
Oh, it'll be a few weeks. We'll have 9 days of official mourning, and then they'll start the conclave. They can take as long as they need to take with the conclave, usually just a few days. So in 2 to 3 weeks, we'll have a new pope.
Anybody in mind for you?
I would love to see an African, actually. The church is very vibrant there, and I find that the African bishops teach with a lot of clarity, and it's precisely what we need today, not things that like sometimes happen with Pope Francis where you have to have 9 pages of nuanced explanation to clarify a statement he made to the press. I'd love to see an African cardinal become pope.
Yeah, I saw a cardinal from Kazakhstan. He was very specific in his teachings, and so were a couple from Africa. I completely agree with you on that. Father, thank you for that. Colonel, always nice to see you, sir. Thank you for both of you being here.
God bless. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Gentlemen. All right, after the break, China continues to make the wrong decisions in the trade war with America, at least some would say, and that's because they recently issued a warning to other countries looking to make trade deals with the United States. Those details straight ahead. a threat issued by China, the Chinese Communist Party, warning other nations against making trade deals with the United States that would hurt the Chinese economy. China's warning comes as President Trump's administration is reportedly planning to use tariff negotiations to pressure U.S. partners to limit all dealings with the CCP and China. President Trump put a pause on major tariff increases on other countries for 90 days while continuing to hike duties further on goods from China, some as high as 245%. Now, nearly 50 countries are coming to the negotiating table looking for a better deal before those 90 days are up. Clearly a good sign of things to come, including the EU, which is 27 countries all by itself. Here with me to discuss this is the CEO of Hard Asset Management, Christian Briggs. Christian, nice to see you today.
Thanks for having me. Very much glad to be here.
All right, so look, I can look at the markets and say, what are we down 1,200 points last time I glanced? I think gold hit $3,500 an ounce today. These are not particularly good signs for the economy where I stand. A little bit concerned here today. Your thoughts?
Well, absolutely. First of all, uncertainty is the worst thing for equities and bonds, unless, of course, you're in a declining interest rate environment. But unfortunately, we're in an interest rate environment which is now starting to escalate based on a couple different things. But you're right. China has now started putting the gauntlet down. They seem to be not backing down on anything. And recent events here and recent announcements show that China's trying to make more and more deeper relations as fast as they can to really sidestep or circumvent the tariffs that have been clearly laid on them, and rightly so by the Trump administration.
Let me ask you this. Can China or the United States fully function economically without the other somewhere in the mix?
Ooh, that's a great question. Okay, and I have not been asked that yet, so let's go right to the heart of it. So 5, maybe 6 years ago, China had about a 20 to 22% dependency on our consumption as well as manufacturing, if you want to go full tilt. Let's fast forward to today. Now it's down to less than 7%. The question really is, can China survive without the United States as a whole or with our allies? And the answer is, I don't think it can. However, it's doing everything it can to try to do that by joining the BRICS nations and the coalition of those member countries. It's trying to circumvent really not the consumption or the manufacturing of the goods in and out of China. It's really trying to circumvent the dollar and trying to utilize local currencies, including its own, as more of the reserve currency or the everyday transactional, both at domestic and international levels. But the answer is, I don't think they can, but if they are able to do it, it's going to come at a very high price.
All right, so the yuan, I haven't looked here in a bit, but they're here recently. It was down to a 20-year low, the yuan was. And we also know it's not a secret. China manipulates its currency. China manipulates the data to say they're in a 5% growth pattern. We know that's not true. Anybody who looks at China says that's flat out false. If there's one thing we know about the Chinese Communist Party, they lie. What's the truth? What is China's economy today really?
Well, I think China's economy is a little bit more fragile than what they give us. And I think you're right. I think they do embellish. They do outright lie about a lot of things. The China economy really is dependent upon just one thing, and that's manufacturing, as well as this unity with the BRICS nations. And going back to your 20-year low on the yuan, that's absolutely correct. It has been known for over 2 to 3 decades that China manipulates their currency. They devalue the currency artificially in order to make their manufacturing much more attractive and appealing, and quite effectively, they've done well at it. The second thing they've done is predatory selling. They've come into the United States, sometimes via Canada, Mexico, or other countries, to sell disproportionate pricing on aluminum and steel. See, President Trump is no dummy. He understands it. He recognizes it. He saw that in 2018. He saw it today, but it's even gotten worse. Biden did nothing but open up the borders. Well, he opened up every kind of border, from immigration all the way to predatory selling, and he allowed the Chinese to flourish, if not expand, through their BRICS membership and the coalition to really effectively hurt and underline our manufacturing. So what Trump's trying to do is to close those doors, level the playing field, but China does artificially do things in order to make their manufacturing more appealing.
Yeah, last question real quick about this. I'm looking at energy prices. Gasoline has been on the decline for a number of weeks now. It's down from 367, the national average here a year ago, to 315 now. That's significant. Energy prices are cheaper. Oil between $63 and $66 a barrel. That's $20 a barrel lower than it's been for a number of months and years, actually. How important is cheap energy to America?
Well, first of all, energy is the foundation of America's sovereignty. So if we can get our energy production back up and we can get the prices stabilizing between 65 and 70, we're going to be fine. It'd be nice to have a lower energy pricing, but you really don't want to, because the growth and the gain is much greater at where we're at in the forms of jobs and tax revenues, and of course, all the way down to local levels. I think energy is going to stay where it's at, but I know Trump's number one right now. Energy policy is one of the top things he's focusing on, and he will deliver.
Christian Briggs, greatly appreciate your time here today. Look forward to talking to you again, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
There you have it. All right. So it's a new day in America and a new administration in Washington, obviously. There's still excitement and optimism about the future, but the reality is this: there's a lot of work to do. There's going to be pain along the way, especially when it comes to fixing our broken healthcare system and so much more. The truth is, forces that are responsible for breaking our healthcare system aren't going to simply go away. The challenges our system faces won't disappear overnight. Now more than ever, you need to be prepared. That's where the Wellness Company comes in. It's doctors or medical professionals you can trust, and its line of prescription medical kits are the gold standard when it comes to keeping you safe and healthy. Whether it is the medical emergency kit like you see on your screen, the contagion kit, the first aid kit, or the travel kit, these prescription kits contain a nice assortment of life-saving medications, plus a guidebook to assist you in the proper use of everything you find there. From the flu to strep throat, COVID to the bird flu, a trip down the street or a trip around the world, doesn't matter. The Wellness Company has a kit for you to keep you and your family safe. Make America healthy again. Make America healthy again at home. Do your part. Protect the health of you and your family. Go to twc.health/voice today and order twc.health/voice. Use the promo code VOICE, save 10%. You'll be glad you did. After the break, I'll be discussing how the rare earth minerals deal with Ukraine would positively affect the United States and the market. We'll be right back. know, I'm not sure what to make of it. On Thursday, the president signaled that there was a breakthrough deal on that Ukraine rare earth minerals situation. It could be finalized as early as this week or next week. The agreement, which would focus on critical materials essential to U.S. manufacturing, defense, and energy sectors, is being hailed as a major step towards securing American supply chains and reducing reliance on adversarial nations like China. Ukraine's economy minister, Yulia Serdenko, confirmed that Kyiv and Washington are moving forward on what she called a mutually beneficial economic partnership agreement. Joining me now to discuss the benefits this will give the American economy is the founder of the Spencer Pruitt and board member on New Journey PAC, Hunter Gaylor. Hunter, nice to see you back here again. Look, the fact of the matter is China still has 85% of the capacity to refine these rare earth elements, regardless of where they come from, because they do come from places like Michigan, Minnesota, Wyoming, the Dakotas, Alaska. I mean, rare earth elements are not actually rare. Refining capacity is rare. I'm right about that, aren't I?
100%. And always, once again, thanks for having me, but you're 100%. The problem that I want the viewers to understand of what's going on when they're talking about this particular deal is Zelensky came out and said many times during the war, you know, if you don't have money, then give us credit and we'll pay it back. Well, I think Trump is holding up his end of the bargain saying, look, this isn't going to be foreign aid anymore. This is going to be a foreign investment with a return clause, right? I mean, President Trump basically has reclassified Ukraine from a charity case to a capital partner, because let's be very, very honest with ourselves. When we talk about these rare earth elements, they are essential from everything from our missile guidance systems to our microchips. And if we don't secure the supply chain, China will. And they do not believe in free markets. They believe in control. So, you know, this is very important. And let's not forget the domestic angle that Trump is playing here. Those minerals come here to be refined, processed, used. That means American jobs, American infrastructure, and American production. And that's a win for the Rust Belt and not just for Kiev.
You know, I go back to a headline that I heard, I'm going to say 2021-22. I'm going to have to trust you a little bit on this. But there was a major discovery of rares in northern Minnesota. And with lightning speed, the Biden administration came in and said, no, off limits, just off limits. Why do the Democrats have this propensity to continue to block America from using its natural resources? I don't care what the natural resource is. Timber, water, farmland, oil, coal, gas. They just want to block us from using the natural resources we have, which would make America incredibly prosperous. I don't understand it.
Well, look, the problem is they're the Democrats. And name me one Democrat that's ever run a multinational corporation like Trump. He understands business. The bottom line, this is what conservative foreign policy looks like: real assets, real strategy, and really a real return to the American taxpayer, because that's jobs, Steve. I mean, at the end of the day, this is when you look at what's going on, if we do not lead the reconstruction of this, someone else will. And as history tells us, you know, it's not the U.S. writing the rules, it's China. And they don't believe in free markets, they believe in control. And I've said that. Now, that's my line. I'm sticking to it because, you know, this is what we need to be doing in America.
Absolutely. We absolutely need to be more involved with working with our own. Look, we have more natural resources than any piece of real estate in the world, all the things that I just rattled off. And yet, to save some toad or some fish that you've never heard of or whatever it might be, the Democrats will block everything. I firmly believe the Endangered Species Act, as a single example, has been abused time and time again. I think NOAA has abused its power in attacking the American fishing industry. I believe I could go right down the line and talk about how government agencies have blocked American business time and again. The Keystone XL pipeline, an easy attack on American business. We need to get back in the game, get rid of regulation, open up our own natural resources, and prosper, Hunter. That's what we have. It's mandatory from where I sit.
100%. It's a matter of national security, and it's a matter of American preservation. I mean, look at it. When these Democrats sit here and you look at where my taxpaying dollars come, my taxpaying dollars are being used to research and you look at these bills, research some crazy animal in Australia or something. I mean, it's absolutely asinine, and it's hurting the American people. It's hurting the American economy, and these other countries laugh at us. That's why I think China, Trump is doing this with China because, America is such a rich country. We're rich in people, we're rich in resources, and it really is God's country. That's what we call it. And, at the end of the day, I think we need to focus on what Trump said, and that's make America prosperous again. And that starts by focusing in on what we have here and what we have now. And that's what's going to secure the
priorities straight.
Generations of people to come.
Hunter, I always appreciate you being here. Common sense is what we try to deliver to the folks here on this program, and you do it every time you're here, sir. Thank you for being here.
Always a pleasure, Steve.
Really appreciate it. And don't go anywhere. America's Voice Live will continue in a moment. Cave and web, but you're not out of the woods yet because the IRS continues to ramp up its enforcement, even in the wake of President Trump's plan to eliminate the department, potentially. Whether you owe back taxes or still need to file, then we here at America's Voice urge you to go to the experts at Tax Network USA. Tax Network USA helping clients save over $1 billion when dealing with the IRS. Here to discuss this is USA spokesperson Cameron Kinsey. Cameron, nice to see you. All right, so the IRS still fired up and coming after folks. Why is it so important to use a professional tax service like Tax Network USA?
Yeah, well, first, thank you so much for having me on, Steve. I think we all know that the IRS isn't your friend in this situation. They know exactly how to intimidate the average American. And so Tax Network USA, we're built up of a professional team. We have CPAs, we have tax attorneys who really know inside and out the tax law and who negotiate with the IRS directly every single day on our clients' behalf. So we're not just some big box chain that plugs numbers into a software. You know, TNUSA, we have our team of experts. We know know and treat every single case like it's personal, because it is. These are families, these are homes, these are futures on the line. We understand how stressful this process can be. Especially during tax season, right? So our team knows the system inside and out, so we just make sure that we're focused on protecting every single day Americans.
Yeah, what advice would you give to people? I mean, they're struggling, they're not sleeping, they know they owe taxes, but they're trying to dodge the whole thing. And you can't do that, can you?
No, I mean, I would not ignore it. You know, the IRS will come after your paycheck. They'll come after your bank account. They'll come after your home. But you're not completely powerless in this situation. There are still options available to reduce penalties or get an extension after the tax filing deadline. So my advice is that you act fast, just because those penalties can rack up, of course. But if you have a valid reason for missing the deadline, like hardship or illness, confusion, we can often get those penalties reduced or wiped out completely. And that's really where expert help comes in handy.
Yeah, and I want to make sure that people understand it's individuals, it's businesses, anybody who's in trouble with the IRS, you can help them, right?
Yeah, I mean, we have various services. We can do offers and compromise, installment agreements, penalty abatements, innocent spouse relief. You know, these services really just protect individuals, because we negotiate directly with the IRS on your behalf, basically acting as a liaison, so you're not having to talk to them directly. And we've settled debts for far less than the original amount that people may owe. So we leverage every single legal tool available just to ensure our clients aren't unfairly targeted.
Yeah, you've saved $1 billion for folks. I mean, it's no small feat, Cameron. That's a big amount of money, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've come across every single case, so nothing that we haven't seen before. So I just recommend you get expert help as soon as possible, just because you don't want to go into this fight alone. Maybe you don't know the ins and outs of tax law like the average individual. So we have CPAs, we have former IRS agents as well, who understand the tactics of these agencies, these three-letter agencies, and what they're looking for. And so, also I want to mention we've got DOJ cleaning house as well. We've seen hiring freezes at the IRS, but normally this means that they're going to ramp up enforcement, because they're going to try to show efficiency at these agencies. So it's better to come prepared this tax season.
So when DOJ tightens the belt for the IRS might become a little more aggressive, shall we say. Here's my advice to you is go to tnusa.com/RAB or call 1-800-905-8000. Don't put it off. Get the professionals on board, just like Cameron says. Cameron, always good to see you. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
All right. Go to tnusa.com/RAB or call 1-800-905-8000. So the Easter egg roll was at the White House today. Our own Brian Glenn was on hand for that. We'll talk about it after the break. South Lawn during the annual White House Easter egg roll, President Donald Trump reaffirmed his administration's commitment to restoring the role of faith in public life. We're bringing back religion in America, he said. Drawing cheers from families gathered for the traditional holiday celebration. Yep, this is a stark contrast to the Joe Biden administration, which had the Easter Bunny saving Joe Biden, which you may have forgotten, but there is the video. Joining me now to discuss is Rav's chief White House correspondent, Brian Glenn. He was there for all the festivities, very colorful. Brian, good afternoon. You know, I saw the staff and heard them singing Amazing Grace. We played it here earlier on the program. It's just a different year in the White House, isn't it?
It is. Good afternoon, Steve. If you remember last year, Joe Biden declared that day that fell on Easter as Transgender Visibility Day. Trans Visibility Day, I think is what he said. And Joe Biden looked more like a groundhog sticking his head up out of the hole, looking around, becoming scared and going back in. He didn't spend a lot of time out with the people. President Trump and the First Lady, Melania Trump, spent a good bit of time with the people. President Trump even sitting down, doing some arts and crafts with the kids, of course, rolling the Easter eggs. Just a really interactive, but that's what you expect when you have an administration that is for the people, and they were elected by the people. And and like you said in your intro, religion. That was my question that I asked President Trump about. He opened it up with a very religious message, saying that he was here to honor Jesus and honor religion and celebrate Easter. And I think that's important.
I think it's very important as a return to, well, it's who this country is. It's who we are. It's our foundational principles, Christian Judeo principles, and he's bringing that back. And, you know, those on the left, you know, sit there and take pot shots. Well, he's this and he's that and he's a womanizer, whatever. Look, we're all imperfect, right? And so for him to come out and declare Easter as being the risen Christ, I don't think I don't have any argument with that at all. None.
No, none. And, you know, that's been a big driving force in our culture the last 3-4 years of removing religion, or at least Christianity and Judaism and every other organized religion, and implementing chaos in our culture, which is the result of a lot of the problems that we have. So it's always a good thing when President Trump can speak the words of God, quote the Bible, and we're headed in the right direction when that happens. And we're not even 100 days in, Steve, and look at all the amazing things he's able to do so far.
I saw something else that I thought was kind of telling. Pete Hegseth also getting basically peppered by reporters. He said, look, you guys, this is the game you play. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. I'm going to spend time with my kids. I'm going to go do the Easter egg roll. Was it PBS that came out and said, oh, the White House looking for a new defense secretary? Within moments, the White House said that's completely false. But I give Pete Hegseth good thumbs up today. Just saying, look, you guys, you're wrong. You're just doing this. Time for the kids. I thought it was nice. What do you think? You saw that? Did you check that out?
I did. And I also saw a reporter that wasn't far from me stand up on a ladder whenever President Trump had just stepped into the Easter egg roll area and peppered him with some questions about the defense secretary. And I thought it was a very inappropriate time to do that. That was not the time to start screaming policy questions when he's trying to interact with these kids on this Easter event. So Hegseth, as you know, is very versed with the media. He knows how to handle them. He's very savvy with the reporters, so I think he did handle himself. Yeah, you know, he did a great job at that.
Beautiful day out there. Look, you're dressed you looked very Eastery today, Brian. You look, very Eastery. I'll just say that.
I went ahead and retired the Italian tablecloth, and I broke out. And this is a new suit I just got the other day, so I try to look presentable for you, Steve.
Very, very nice. Brian Glenn, everybody. He is the Real America's Voice Chief White House correspondent. Brian, as always, thank you very much for being here. I think we'll just wrap it up with Brian there today. Greatly appreciate him being here. Thank you, sir. Don't forget tomorrow. We begin the broadcast day for Real America's Voice right here with me every morning. I get up early just for you. I burn the midnight oil, as they say, and I get up just for you to be here at 6 a.m. Hot coffee, hot conversation, and Real America's Voice. How do you beat that, right? And then, of course, I dust myself off and come back for America's Voice Live every afternoon. So I'll see you again tomorrow. Thanks, guys.